Alabama Nation, what's going on? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. Hope you are having a strong week. Tuesday, August 29th. Thank you for joining us on the program. I'd like to hear where you guys are from. So if you guys could comment inside any of the comment box, let me know where you're listening from. I'd be eager to hear. I'm coming to you from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and I'm fired up. You know, this is my first time really on the Alabama scene, and I am just so excited for this weekend's game between Alabama and Florida State. So many storylines, and you know, people are asking me earlier in the week, why are you always dressed up? Why are you always amped up? Why always ready to go? And my response was this: look, I've worked so hard personally to get here to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and I don't want to forget where I'm at. I mean, this is Alabama football. This is the pinnacle of college football. Look at where we're going this weekend. The brand new Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta, Georgia. Don't forget that. Don't forget where we're at. I mean, this is big time college football. I'm happy to be here, and I hope that you are feeling that same excitement. It's not just another game. And in fact, here's what Nick Saban said in Monday's press conference when someone asked him, is it just game after game, kind of just going through the motions? Nick Saban still fired up and treats every single game the exact same way. Here's Saban talking about how he approaches each game during Monday's press conference.
You've coached in so many games that have drawn a lot of national attention and interest. When you operate in that plane for as long as you have, is there ever a point where it starts to feel normal?
What feel normal? That every game is a big game. I mean, it's always been that way for me. I mean, I've given this speech many, many times. You know, I don't work in the media right now. I work with our team to try to get them better and to play the best standard that they can play to in every game they play, regardless of who the opponent is. So every game is a big game to me. Maybe psychologically, maybe national interest, maybe externally, maybe it doesn't seem to be as big, but internally, to us, our coaches, our players, and sometimes our people get affected by those external factors, but we try not to allow people to be affected by that so they can continue to grow, continue to improve, continue to get better. Look, it's a long season. You know, we're going to have 12, 13, 14 games and maybe 15, I don't know, but you know, what happens in the first game is certainly important. But we're going to have lots of press conferences in this room, and you're going to ask me the same question when we play the next big game. But the only difference is the next game that we play is going to be the biggest game for me, and it will always be that way. And I think when it isn't that way, I think you're going to see a very inconsistent team in terms of how they play relative to the level of competition. If your goal is to be the best that you can be, individually, personally, or as a team, or as a unit, then why does the guy you're playing against determine the level that you play? Why does the scoreboard determine the level that you play? So I understand from a media standpoint, from a fan standpoint, there's certainly more interest in some games than others, but internally to what we're trying to grow as a team, that really doesn't exist.
Saban always bringing it, right? Alabama provided some great stats for the media on Monday. I'm a huge stats guy. I love stats, eat them up. Love to look at charts, graphs. Found this really interesting. This is the title: Dome Sweet Dome. The Alabama Crimson Tide is 24-7-1 all-time in dome stadiums, including a 15-2 mark since 2009 and is 16-4 in Nick Saban's tenure. The Tide was 3-0 indoors in 2006. Alabama opened the year with a 52-6 win over USC on September 3rd at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, then posted back-to-back wins in Atlanta, Georgia's Dome, a 54-16 win over Florida in the SEC Championship game on December 3rd, and a 24-7 victory over Washington in the college football playoff semifinal at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl on December 31st. You know, you look at a game like this and you can look at stats going in and, you know, stats like that, Dome Sweet Dome, or however you want to spin it. But does it really matter where these two teams play? I think For me, I don't think it really does. However, I will say I do feel that Alabama probably has an edge in the fact that they've played in Atlanta so many times over the last several years that they're probably comfortable with the fact of going to Atlanta. Minkah Fitzpatrick has said that, they stay in the same hotel. They go through the same routine. So in that aspect, they have probably a slight edge. But I think the medium for this game is that it's week 1. And there's no rhythm. There's no way to tell any sort of identity about your team until after week 1, when you start to develop the identity. Now, you can go in with a plan, but there's a great phrase that I love. I don't know who coined it, but everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. You've heard that, right? And I think that rings true for every single sport. You want to execute. You want to run the football. You want to take shots over the top. Well, guess what? Opening kickoff could potentially be a fumble for either team. So you have to have the ability to adapt. And I think in week 1, big-time games, while Alabama has had tremendous success over the last 10 seasons, you could look at any sort of stats the way you want to. The fact of the matter remains that both of these teams have not played a football game this season. And number 1 versus number 3, a big-time game in Atlanta, Georgia, in front of 70,000 plus fans at a brand new stadium, brand new venue. You throw all those stats out the window because they don't mean anything. Now, I think talent-wise, going in, Alabama, of course, on paper, has the edge. Vegas agrees. Alabama now a 7-point favorite in this game. The line's opened up 3.5, then moved to 4, then moved to 5, and now it's 7. Talked about that yesterday. I think if you're an Alabama fan, you're going to bet on Alabama regardless. That's a large point spread, 7 points. I mean, in a game like this, 2 top teams, the over-under, as I mentioned yesterday on the program, 49 points. 49 points. This is my point prediction. I'll give my overall prediction later in the week, but I have the game currently at 52 total points. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this game, but we'll see. Both of these defenses coming in look on paper to be phenomenal. And the defensive secondary on each team is led by a superstar. Minkah Fitzpatrick for Alabama and Derwin James for Florida State. Here's a great clip from Jimbo Fisher's press conference on Monday talking about Minkah Fitzpatrick.
I'll tell you what, you talk about a heck of a player. Great family. That was a down-the-wire recruiting deal, too. We recruited the heck out of that guy, and I really enjoyed him and his family. Phenomenal, and it's been fun to watch him play. It ain't going to be fun this weekend, but that guy's too good. But, I mean, you go back and watch him, how many turnovers he turns into touchdowns. I mean, the pick where they had in Arkansas, the game he had at A&M a couple years, just he's always in the right place, whether he's playing corner, whether he's playing safety, whether he's playing nickel, whether he's playing dime. I mean, guy's just an unbelievably instinctive football, can tackle, can cover, and he has tremendous ball skills. And he affects the game. And that's a lot like Derwin. I mean, Derwin's a little bigger, and, Minkah's probably a corner that comes inside, but that can do both. Derwin's probably a safety that can play some corner, but also plays up like a linebacker at times. But they're both very impactful as far as the way they can affect and be moved around and match up against different types of players.
Friendly reminder that you can download any of our future or past podcasts by subscribing to the BamaInsider.com podcast. Simply go to iTunes or Google Play, search for the BamaInsider.com podcast. It'll bring it right to your phone. We also stream it on YouTube, so you can go back and listen to it however you want, just trying to provide options for you. My name is Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. Today is Tuesday, August 29th, just talking Alabama, Florida State. What else you want to talk about, right? I know I mentioned earlier in the program, you can throw the stats out the window. However, I felt that talking about the returning stat leaders is something that we want to talk about just to provide you with some more insight into who to watch for Saturday's game. We'll start with Florida State since you probably know every single thing about Alabama already. Their leading rusher from last year was Jacques Patrick with 61 rushes for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. Passing-wise, obviously, sophomore DeAndre Francois, as you know, balled out last year, throwing for 3,300 yards, 20 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 257 yards per game. Receiving-wise, Naquan Murray caught for 441 yards with 5 touchdowns. Leading the team in tackles with Matthew Thomas, 77 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, for quarterback hurries. For Alabama, the returning stat leaders read like this. Rushing, Damian Harris, 1,037 yards and 2 touchdowns. Passing-wise, sophomore quarterback Jalen Hurts, 2,700 yards, 23 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 185 yards per game. Receiving-wise, Calvin Ridley, 72 receptions for 769 yards with 7 touchdowns. And leading the team in tackles, returning into the season, was Ronnie Harrison at safety, 86 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. This game has everything you want in a big-time game, and I'm happy that the game is on primetime ABC because it provides so many opportunity to really get a glimpse at these top two teams going in. And I also think it provides a great opportunity for recruits to check this game out. And that's what I'm also excited about because Alabama and Florida State, along with, teams like Clemson, Ohio State, Michigan, all battling for these top prospects. And when all eyes are on a game like this, it creates some interesting buzz recruiting-wise. So we're going to catch up with Andrew Bone, our recruiting analyst at BamaInsider.com. Later on in the week, he's actually in the midst of talking with prospects and Alabama commitments to get their prediction on this weekend's game between Alabama and Florida State. In Monday's press conference, Nick Saban opened up with some great comments and quotes regarding this game and the preparation that his team has put in to get ready for a game of this magnitude. Here is Saban during his Monday press conference talking about the Florida State matchup and what this game will come down to.
I think this is a great opportunity for our team to play in a great environment, new stadium in Atlanta against one of the top teams, no doubt, in the country. Florida State has got a lot of returning starters on both sides of the ball, especially at skill positions, quarterback, defensive players, however you want to figure it, 10 or 11 guys coming back on defense, which was one of the top defenses in the country a year ago. I think both of these teams probably are going to be well prepared to play this game. I know our guys have done a really good job in preparation for this game. We're pleased with the progress that we've been able to make with a lot of players, and we've had a couple good days of work in Florida State prep, which we will continue today. Each player kind of knows what their job is, what the challenges are, and I think each player knows that the player he's playing against is a really good player, and he's going to know his number too, and I think that's what makes it a great challenge and a great opportunity, for our team. I think this is going to a game that's going to come down to who can play with the most discipline and execute for 60 minutes in the game. That's how a lot of first games are. Who's going to make the most mental errors, who's going to take care of the ball the best. So this is always the challenge in an opening game.
Jimbo Fisher, who coached under Nick Saban at LSU, has had a tremendous career at Florida State. Here are some stats on Fisher's historic pace. This is provided by Florida State Football. Entering his 8th year as head coach at Florida State, Jimbo Fisher has authored one of the most successful starts to a head coaching career in college football history. Fisher's 78 wins are the most in college football history during a coach's first 7 seasons, while his winning percentage is by far the highest of any ACC coach of all time. Among active coaches with 5 years of experience, Fisher's 11.1 wins per season average is the most of any coach in college football, while his .821 winning percentage ranks second behind only Urban Meyer, who had .851. Impressive stuff for Jimbo Fisher. And obviously Nick Saban has a ton of respect for Fisher. And on Monday, just like Nick Saban, Fisher held his opening press conference and opened with some statements and gave Alabama extremely high praise. Here's Fisher on Alabama.
Finally, the season's here. Excited about getting kicked off and playing another opponent, someone besides ourselves. Been a long camp, but a very good camp. Been very happy with camp and the progress we've made, and we'll find out. But, our camp, for the most part, we've been relatively healthy for the most part, getting through camp as long as we have. Looking forward to an outstanding season. Hopefully our kids will play well and do the things we got to do, and we can stay healthy. Like I say, knock on wood. But starting this first week, looking forward. We got a great team we're playing, Alabama. Again, they have nothing but respect for Alabama. They've done a tremendous job with their program in the past, in the present, and in the future. I know they will. Their coach, they have an outstanding coach. Nick does as good a job as anybody. Does a great job preparing his team, and they'll be ready. Outstanding players. They play very hard, very physical, very well coached. Have big guys, dynamic guys, playmakers. They have it across the board. They can throw it, they can catch it, they can run with it, they can defend, they can cover. They do all the things that you have to do to be successful, and they're great in the special team. So we're definitely looking forward to the opener, but at the same time, we're going to have to play extremely well. We know we have our hands full playing a great opponent, but saying all that, we're looking forward to it.
Great comments by Fisher on Alabama. Well, that's all I got on the BamaInsider.com podcast. Remember, you can subscribe to any of our past or future shows by simply subscribing on iTunes or Google Play to the BamaInsider.com podcast. Let me know if you have questions on how to do that. My email is kyle@BamaInsider.com. From Tuscaloosa, Alabama, this is the BamaInsider.com podcast. Don't forget to keep the people of Houston, Texas in your prayers. And if you can help out, be sure and do that. Definitely millions of people in need. So if we can help, we definitely should. And keep that in the back of your mind as we continue to push through this week. There are bigger things than college football. From Tuscaloosa, Alabama, this is the BamaInsider.com podcast.